is so bifurcated now between BRICS and the West that I don't know what kind of coordination with the rest of the world Washington is going to get with anybody. This is what's so damaging about the Russian sanctions, and why you start to get to this conclusion that nobody really thought this thing through, what they were doing. I mean, just on a simple basis with Russia, the simplest basis with Russia. If you look at what was happening before the end of Nord Stream and sanctions, right? The Russians were happy to sell significantly discounted oil and gas into the West to keep the industrial, part of Western Europe humming along and German car manufacturers happy. And then, because of the promulgation of this conflict, and the average Russian person was happy to do that because that meant that they were making money as a part of the Russian economy, getting foreign exchange in, and they would buy lots of nice bling from Italy, keeping everybody in Italy very happy too, who were selling bling because Russians love their bling. And then they love their holidays on Côte d'Azur, maybe pick up a cheap little pied-à-terre in Paris. And, everybody was humming along quite nicely with that. And then they put sanctions on them, and the money couldn't flow out of Russia anymore. If they had not put the sanctions on and started the war, a lot of Russian wealth would have run away into the West. But because they put the sanctions on Russia, especially the EU, they blocked the door. So the Russians couldn't even get their money out, which a lot of them happily would have picked up a couple $1 million, a couple of tens, $100 million, flooded into Paris, London, Madrid, and said, okay, well, we'll wait till the war's over from this side of the conflict. But that's what makes me think nobody thought this through, or whoever did picked a strange sequence to do things in. So now all that capital is locked in Russia. All that money stayed in Russia. Now everybody's in holiday in Sochi. Of course, we all know what's happening with Thailand. They literally bought Phuket. They literally bought Phuket. And so it seems like, the intention of sanctions was to collapse the Russian economy, was thwarted by the very people who were trying to do it. You couldn't make it up. I mean, if they had left the gates open, which was the stated objective of the West, hoping to overthrow the Russian government, you could have, or produce regime change, which is the stated attempt, you could have created 1,000 little miniature Boris Berezovskys running around all over London and Paris. But because they put the sanctions on it, you couldn't. So yeah. It doesn't look like anybody thought the whole thing through. The sanctions on Russia were and are the biggest fill-up, the biggest supporter of BRICS that you could possibly engineer. Now you have a system where you will never get global coordination again. The world has been divided. And this is a plan of the globalists.
Yeah, it didn't work out very well.
Not very well.
So to wrap up, you were talking about 1968 as being the trigger for the gold bull market into 1980. Do you think 2025 is the year, or was it 2024? And how do you think it's going to last 12 years like back then, or we can't really tell?
It's you can't really tell how it's going to wind up. But I would say that the inflection point that comes with 68, you have a period before it where gold has to be controlled for like 7 years with the gold pool. We don't have a gold pool now, and you're not going to get a gold pool now. You might get individual countries try and tax the sale of gold. You have something very different going on now, which people should pay attention to, I think. BRICS has their reserve currency. It's gold. That's what they're going to use. There's no secret about this. They're setting up a vaults in Malaysia, Hong Kong, Shanghai, Saudi Arabia, and other places on the cards. Shows you they're going to use gold as the reserve structure and the trade balancing structure. And out of the U.S. Treasury, we have what? we're going to try and use stable coins. I ask you, which side of that fence would you like to be on? Which side of that fence would you like to be on? This doesn't make sense. You know, stable coins, there's going to be a disaster. You know, so the world is divided in more ways than one. It's divided militarily. It's divided politically completely. Now it's being divided in terms of banking, in terms of reserve currency structure. And then you're going to see that when this thing plays out, that the people with gold, the golden rule will apply. He who has the gold makes the rules.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't look very, very intelligent to go into this crazy stable coin thing that Besant and everybody's talking about. And then, you know, you have Russia, China, and India saying, we're going to use gold. BRICS has its reserve currency. It is gold. The West is going to try and do something with crypto, and I don't think it's a very good idea, but